Hi, yeah, I don't like root. Is gonna be a 4 out of 10. I don't really care for root. It is Wednesday, July 20th, and I don't like root. Now, root is this fantastic area control about fighting over this woodland forest with steep asymmetry that I could never quite wrap my head around to feel like I had much fun playing, as much I respect the game's systems. Luckily for us at Shelfside, this guy Daniel, who loves root, this is his game, does all the root content around here.
Clean them out of the game, literally no board presence.
Oh, okay, they're laughing, root stuff. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Is this how it feels like to be a non-board gamer? So eventually I had to download this board game into my screen game system for Root Digital. Will I finally enjoy Root? Will this be the magic unlock? Will I see the light? Will I be like all my friends and enjoy playing Root? Multiplayer Root without embarrassing myself in front of friends, and oh my gosh, first impressions were amazing. The app is just pretty, with dancing animals right away, a clean menu, yeah, all the top tier digital integration stuff you'd want. During gameplay, the animations are awesome with the dust effects, spinning gears, growing buildings, moving animals, etc. There's sound effects for everything, and digital restrictions and reminders to keep you on the rails, so you know you're playing Root correctly. The tutorials for a quick refresher on the factions, and the AI feel like reasonable competition, but more on that later. Battles feel gritty and fast, and the options to play your surprise cards during so is really well handled. The undo button is very useful for your turn, and hovering over cards to see them more clearly was nice. Although I do wish the zoom-ins were bigger, since I was playing handheld on my Switch. Actually, I wish basically everything was bigger. Pressing the icons on the bottom right can sometimes get a little tricky. And hovering over to see what icons mean is like trying to read a medicine bottle. Come on. But whatever, Root wasn't designed to be like the most complicated mobile game ever. You know what, since I'm here, let's talk about some quick issues with this app. The menu and gameplay music is amazing. I generally love it. Some Hearthstone vibes at the beginning of the gameplay loop for sure. But it is a single loop of 10 minutes, and at the 7-minute mark, I'll hit this, some weird high-pitched segment that's not pleasant. That's not good ambiance, okay? That part was just so distracting, I had to turn off that music as fast as all my friends, kickstart those Root expansions, and sometimes the screen just wouldn't respond to tapping on the touchscreen. Finally, okay. For newcomers or very rusty Root players like me who remember some of the factions, the tutorial does feel like it's missing a bit. Even with 5 tutorials, it doesn't explain all that much of the grand idea of Root. Like the overall tutorial is insanely brisk. Getting points to win the game isn't discussed. As for the 4 faction tutorials for base game, their explanations are better but still brisk, especially in helping you to think of how to actually win. And so I found myself reading the rulebook to understand exactly what I was doing or supposed to be doing. All too often during the tutorial, you would pass your turn, then left head scratching in a tutorial on why opponents are doing certain things because of their asymmetry that is not really explained. You'll know some things like Eyrie Turmoil or Woodland Alliance Outrage, but it never goes into much depth. Like maybe I could find out more about why their factions get so many actions and move in their specific ways. Compare this all to playing in person, where a friend who knows Root can straight up tell you why they're doing certain things, instead of sound effects and cute cats just popping up around you. Again, such is a bit of the weird cart jumping in front of the horse issue of Root's sharp asymmetry, where to properly play the game, that is playing your faction in the context of the board events, you need to understand how others work. But it's really too much exposition to explain every single faction from the get-go, and I guess they just said, screw it. We'll keep the tutorial super streamlined so you have as quick of a dry run as possible. Oh, and there's also 5 tutorials, so again, it doesn't want to take too much of your time with a single one. Still, the tutorials could definitely use at least a learn more or slower mode for newcomers. We have to talk about the politics of Root though, where there's none in digital. No talking or anything remotely approaching deal making with the robots. They will sometimes ignore the winner in favor of attacking you, or just do their own thing in the corner. After all, it's probably tricky to program in robots contacting you to attack the other robot who's winning. But it does feel a bit empty how aggressive, or specifically helpful actions from robots just happen on the map without further communication. King-making with robots who never talk feels insanely stupid, making final outcomes feel a bit like a wash. You can play Root Digital online, which we haven't tried, and hopefully there's ways to talk there, because if not, I suspect playing online can't feel too much different than playing against normal or hard difficulty robots. And then I found that a couple things were sorely missed about the physical experience, like easily being able to see people's hands, the discard, or player boards. Oh, I can't pause the game on the computer's turns? And I can't speed up their turns either, but luckily I found that maintaining this zoomed out approach is an option so that the screen isn't constantly jumping around on their turns. We got a fun thing here too. The game froze when doing a really dumb move like having 11 combined troops attack another Vagabond, but that was sorted out by just quitting and reloading the game. This isn't even a good move anyways, and the game was recoverable, so this is not a huge deal. Overall, Root Digital feels great for Root gamers who just want more games in while understanding Digital's inherent restrictions. They can get more reps in with their favorite factions, test specific openings, test expansion factions before buying, or even just straight immerse themselves in a low stakes game without setup or takedown. Yet there are still gripes with learning that prevent this from being the solve all to Root's steep barrier to entry. And the biggest reason to be scared of playing Root Digital isn't the learning of mechanics or UI, it's that the core premise of the game, the political maneuvering, is gone. And that feels antithetical to how Root was designed. But hey, turn-by-turn mechanical implementation of an already great game are so clean, this might not be a deal breaker. Anyways, I definitely have to give a lot of leeway to Root Digital, since it wasn't designed to be a video game first and foremost like Civilization. So stuff like politics or board transparency can get lost in translation. But heck, if you have some digital time on your hands and have always wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of all the factions of this forest, this could be the perfect appetizer to the main course that is real-life Root, because playing this just felt like playing Root Light. So after playing Digital like 12 times or so, I think I'm ready to say it. I think I finally like Sorry man, I don't think I can do it. Sorry, yeah.
I respect this opinion. Can I have my game back?
Oh, yes, yeah, sure. Playing Root Digital gave me a lot more clarity on this asymmetric critter amalgamation. By the way, I never liked the theme, and I still don't like it, especially in an area control. But playing Digital really reinforced this idea I had about base game factions that I don't like half of them. I don't like the Vagabond and Woodland Alliance. I'm okay playing as them, but playing against them makes me want to run away from this forest. Their insurgency sneakiness to the extreme is just frustrating to play around in an area control. This frustration is kind of the point, but I don't like it. The Vagabond never dies and can score a lot of points by attacking you multiple times on a turn. Or he steals from you and no, you shouldn't attack him early because that's a waste of your actions. And he might ally with you? Like, you just leave him be then, but then he can always just do whatever late game as he slips into the forest, and is such a weird wildcard and rogue factor that feels cheesy to me. Come on, he can forcefully move your units once he's allied with you. That feels so odd. Gosh, the loss of politics is just weird in Digital, but not sure if I could ever take games of Root with a Vagabond in them remotely seriously. Woodland Alliance is the constant thorn in my side and head that I detest playing against. Oh, they always have an advantage during combat, so it feels absolutely terrible to fight them, even if they have just one unit. Oh, but if you don't attack them, they can revolt, blowing up everything in a region, getting a ton of points and nuking your stuff. Or how about when you go into their regions, you have to give them a card, and have to give them a card when attacking them. Sheesh, talk about a really feels bad move to give your most hated enemy more cards to fuel them. Like seriously, I can see all the counterplay and when to attack them and to keep them down, but I hate them so much that sometimes I just want to ignore points and winning to just get rid of their sympathy weeds just growing everywhere. I'm learning more and more that I tend to gravitate away from these sneaky factions because I was totally fine with the Eyrie and Cats. The Cats way more so, which have a straightforwardness that is really welcome in the sea of faction specialties. The Eyrie are pretty cool, where their decree system is simultaneously satisfying and annoying as you build up for big turns and then collapse to have garbage turns. The decree's rigid nature and eventual collapse has me paranoid about counterplay and optimizing constantly, where even for more simple things like movement become big decisions. Plus, I think this insurgency issue wouldn't be as personally striking if the game didn't have such a multi-layered suit system, where the cards are colors to match with regions, coinciding with all sorts of abilities, from craftable items, craftable surprises, immediately usable ambushes, and even alternate win conditions. Oh, and then every single bird card is wild. It's just too much for my brain to have to worry about all the different faction abilities as they score in different ways, with these multi-layered cards flying around. And I always forget about the craftable cards opponents have made to surprise me with in combat, with certain regions that I also have to keep track for my cards. Now is a good time to mention that Root just makes me feel dumb. Oh, and then screw the favor of the mouse, rabbit, fox cards, those are super swingy and unfun to play against. Really have to echo all of Daniel's thoughts he made during our review here. At this point, I've sunk in about 10 hours into this game with all my digital and physical experiences, and kept thinking, is there any point where I would realistically enjoy this game? My board gaming mindset is that I always want to somewhat try to win, even for first games and even for more casual games like Munchkin or Catan. I'm not screwing over other people's just for the heck of it. Basically, I want to say, I try to win and improve if possible. Root initially posed a huge challenge to that premise on game night, where I couldn't grasp my own faction comfortably within an hour, much less 3 other factions. 3 enemies thrown into the mix to strategize around, and I have to worry about politics and all this. With the training grounds of Root Digital, I could really sit down and douse myself in all the asymmetry and mechanics, and I can say with a clear conscience that the core mechanics in this fantastic game are above average to passable to agonizing to play with. I could go on for so long about how the faction design is like a masterclass on so many levels, from creativity to theme-meeting gameplay to how combat is handled, where my eyes lit up many a time during a certain phase for a faction. The more I played Root Digital, the more my respect for Root's design grew, and the more I found that I didn't personally enjoy all of the, wow, that's really cool design moments. There's no joy to feel any competitive drive to win or get better at this, but it is also so complex and cutthroat that I can't turn my brain off and casually laugh off results. So then it feels bad to lose, but to actively improve at the game, that will feel like a chore. I'm ever more impressed on how much of an anomaly Root is. A game that's huge focus on table talk on an interconnected dynamic board makes it a sublime fit for the board game night medium. Replacing your conniving friends with digital Root's robots can make this vibrant game feel a bit soulless, and outcomes relatively pointless without the table talk. Root is the pinnacle of facilitating awesome game night mindsets with friends, where you play to win, but if you don't win, you made some awesome memories along the way. But at the same time, it's hard to play to win if newcomers don't understand the 4 steeply different factions, so thank goodness Root Digital exists to prepare for said game night. Or maybe you don't need to understand everything to have fun, because that's some of our non-board gamer friends who seem to have a pretty good time with Root right away. They just enjoy the vibes of the table and politic when needed. They can come back through massive turns when the veteran is getting piled on top of, or win through an alliance. These newcomer non-board gamers for sure don't understand every faction's nuance, but hey, they're having fun, and that's what matters for a game. 3 years later, through cardboard and pixels, through filming and editing the Root review and now this review, my enjoyment of Root overall is exactly the same. I wanted to like it, and I still want to like it. I just don't. When I sum up all my Root experiences, from a bewildered newcomer, to a hesitant repeat player, to a digital implementation grinder to beat my head over the asymmetry, I get that the politics just doesn't meet the complexity in Root in an enjoyable way for me. Look, battle outcomes, card draw, and table talk all are really varied and matter to such an extreme degree in Root that you don't have to focus too seriously on optimizing individual turns. So I'm probably just overthinking the mechanics, just thinking about them too hard, where winning is actually this mixture of mechanical skill, political maneuvering, and some luck. In fact, Root echoes a lot of elements in one of my favorite political games ever, Twilight Imperium 4. But Root takes a lot of elements I typically enjoy here and just blows them up to an extreme I don't like. Root has surprise cards to play on your opponent's turns, but just way more so. It has asymmetry, but just way more so. Way more so in steepness. It has varied ways of getting points, but way more so. Plus alternate win conditions. Root has varied movement options, but just way more so. And because Root has way more movement without actions costing resources, it has way more attacking opportunities. Way more attacking opportunities means that political outcomes mean a lot more. And so Root is still a game that I struggle to play well. But for me to get good enough so that my individual performance meets my expectations of how good I am at such a complex game, that's just too much work. Root isn't listed to be as heavy as other asymmetric games I enjoy, like Gaia Project, TI4 Prophecy of Kings, or Sid Meier's Civilization, but those games make me feel good and clever and epic, but Root just makes me feel dumb or annoyed. I thought I liked asymmetry, but you know what the sharp asymmetry still translates to for me? 4 players are just playing 4 different nuanced games, and that hinders my mental flow with too many lines of counterplay. There was just poor flow for me when playing Root, where I'm constantly going, yeah, that's not fun to play around or against. How do I play against that again? If I were to imagine how this would all go down in person, I would imagine that I would enjoy some parts of the game slightly more because of actual politics. But at the same time, all the mechanical demands, without the digital implementation's constant reminders, would keep my overall score still not that good. Maybe I'll come back to Root in about a year or 2, maybe 3 years. Maybe never. But okay, yeah, really, thank goodness we have Daniel here to take care of all the Root content, not written by me. My holistic Root personal score after playing digital is still 4 out of 10. If I'm playing turn-based digital, I'd rather be playing Civ. If I'm playing a board game, I'd play a bajillion other games first. But seriously, Root is a great game. Can't say enough good things about the design. Look at my friends. Look, they're having so much fun. They're having so much fun.